Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Peter. It's been a long time since I had the opportunity to talk to the same people 2 consecutive weeks. The last time I did that was when I used to teach, pastors and teachers, deacons up in Miracle Mountains, where we will have the whole weekend when we talk about health. So I want to thank you that you do care for the body of Christ in things that matter. First, the testimony. We have to live our life in obedience to the Holy Spirit. Yesterday, about 6 o'clock, I got a call from the hospital that there was a young man of 19 who needed surgery for appendix. So I got to the hospital about 6:45. I went to set up the operating room. So I'm waiting for the surgeon. No call from him. All my nurses are ready. So, and then, I heard the Spirit tell me, go upstairs and see what's going on. But as I was about to leave the operating room, the surgeon calls me and says, the young man says he's not having the surgery. So I said, why? So I'm on my way. I don't know why the Spirit was asking me to go upstairs. So I go upstairs and I go into the room. As soon as I get into the room, the mother jumps up, Dr. Bambala! She had been my patient for a very long time. And she always told me she had 2 sons. They're always giving her trouble. So I go see the young man. So he has already told the surgeon of tall guy. And the mother said, the doctor has always been telling you about Dr. Bambala. So as he's standing up, I sit down. And I'm looking at him like this. So he's looking after me, I'm giving him authority. So I said, well, when they told me you are 19 years old, I said, I'm coming to talk to you as a father, as if you are my son. He cooled down. I said, now that I've seen your mother, I'm no longer talking to you as if you are my son. I'm talking to you as my son. Father. What is the problem? So he told me his biggest fear was pain after surgery, which is a legitimate fear. But the surgeon got pissed, I said, you don't know what I'm talking about? I'm the surgeon. So young men and authority don't always miss. So I had to sit down and explain to him why it is that surgery may be the best option right now. And you could see him relaxing. So the next question he asked, how will you take care of that? I said, that's very easy, we'll take care of that. And he said, okay, let's go do the surgery. So I went over to the surgeon. I said, he has agreed. What did you do? I said, the Holy Spirit. And all the nurses were looking like this. There's nothing he can do. He just have to obey. So anyhow, I want to thank you for the privilege. Please distribute this. That paper, let me have one of this. Okay. We'll come to this later on. But it is what we call body mass index. That means God has designed our body such that we can, every inch of our body can carry only so much weight. And if it goes outside that, our body begins to strain. Just like your car may be made for 5 people, and you decide to put 10 people there, it's going to be a lot of problems. You're going to be changing your shock absorber very often. So I took time to highlight where we should be. On the left-hand side is our height, and on the top right is our BMI. So what you need to do is you take your height and follow it up to the right side, and your weight should fall within that yellow mark. For instance, if you are 5 feet 10 inches tall, your least weight should be 174, and your maximum weight should be about 202. You live within that. Okay, so now, last time we talked about so much disease, and diabetes, stroke, high blood pressure, and I gave us statistics that showed there's no difference between Christians and non-Christians. So basically we lose the potency of our testimony, because we should be able to have something that distinguishes us, from non-believers, but that is not the case. And we talked about what we should eat in order for us to live the abundant life that God has promised us. And today, what I want to focus on is, as Christians, why is it that we are sick? Why? What are the reasons? Are there references in the Bible that shows us why we are sick? Because I think in the why that we will know the yes, how to transform, how to change in our lives. Now, in the Bible, there are many characters that had one form of disease or the other. If you remember, Pharaoh, on this occasion, because he was very stubborn, God wanted to teach him a lesson, and so he asked plague, to be thrown upon him. That's an example of sickness, and that is in disobedience. And God wants to teach a lesson. You also remember that the king Nebuchadnezzar, a mental illness fell on him. That's to teach an example. That's right. There's one reason for sickness from the Bible is when we live in disobedience and God is compelled to teach a lesson who is in control. Another example is in Job chapter 2. In this passage, remember, the devil is looking for trouble to cause, and God is boasting about his son. And he says, you can do anything with him except touch his life. And one of the things that did happen to Job was sickness of the skin. God is testing his faith of his child. I know no matter what happens, he's going to remain faithful to him because he also knows I can cure him. That's another example. So second reason is the testing of our faith. In John chapter 9, we have the story of the blind man born from birth. That's another example of sickness. In this scenario, the Pharisees are trying to discountenance or dismiss the deity of Christ. And they are trying to put the affliction of the Son on the missteps of his parents. And Christ said it's none of that. And when he did open his eyes, the young man came to the realization that it's only God that can open somebody's eyes by using mud. So that's another example in which there could be disease, but it is to prove the majesty, the power of God in a situation. And then we have the story of Apostle Paul, 2 Corinthians chapter 12, where Paul doesn't give the description, but he has a thorn in his flesh. In this example, as you go further in the illustration, it is to prove one thing which we should all have in mind: our utter dependence on God's grace. Because somebody like Paul, he has become so accomplished and so successful in many places where he worked, they thought he was God.
That's true.
But having the thorn in his flesh, about which he prayed many times for deliverance, it did not happen. It taught him that in every and each situation, God's grace must be sufficient.
Amen.
Humility. However, 99% of the affliction, physical affliction that man suffers today is not from any of these reasons. Many of them is because we live in violation of God's principles, statutes, laws, rules to guide ourselves to the abundant life in every aspect of our life that He has promised. That's why if you read all of the 159 verses of Psalm 119, it talks repeatedly about respect, obedience to His principles, to His statutes. They were put in place so that all 8,000 plus promises of prosperity, abundance in every aspect of our life would come to fruition. Let me say that again. All these principles, statutes, regulations, laws that God put in our place is for us to obey to actualize the more than 8,000 plus promises of God for our prosperous and abundant life. Without obeying those principles, those promises remain unactualized. So, when we read a passage like this, and I'm convinced that nothing can separate us from God's love, neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither our fears for today nor our worries tomorrow, not even the powers of fear can separate us from God's love. No power in the sky above or in the earth below. Indeed, nothing in all creation will ever be able to separate us from the love of God that is revealed in Christ Jesus. When I read passages like this, I feel like walking on that. I feel unstoppable. Because the only impediment, the only person that can stop you from enjoying God's abundance is not God, because He has already done. He came to this world to die for us. What more sacrifice? Now it's left for His children to walk the walk and enjoy these bounties. In 1 Corinthians, as the word reading today said, chapter 6, verse 12, I said to you, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. And even though I am allowed to do anything, I must not become a slave to anything. Our weakness, our fears, our doubts, they are the things that prevent us from truly enjoying the abundant life that God has given us. So our prayers It's not so much that God should bless that hamburger, that Coca-Cola, all these processed foods. Our prayers shouldn't be for somehow God to change the contents, but for God to strengthen me so that I can eat and drink what He wants me to eat, so that in my body God is glorified.
Yes.
Amen.
But you can't say that our bodies were made of sexual immorality. They were made for God. And the Lord cares about our bodies. And God will raise us from the dead by His power, just as He raised our Lord from the dead. Further in Corinthians chapter verse in 6:19, it says, don't you know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit dwells in there. Glorify Him in your body. In Romans chapter 12, it says, I beseech you, present your body as living sacrifices, pleasing and acceptable to Him. How? It takes me to the next thing. The food that we eat. In America and in most developed nations today, we are the victims of the technological advances. Processed food. 90% of the grains that we eat all over the world come from three sources: wheat, corn, and rice. Wheat is where flour is made from. The bread, the cookies, the candies, all of these are made from wheat. And you say, what is the problem with wheat, Dr. McCall? The way wheat was grown before the Industrial Revolution is different from the way wheat is grown today. The commonest baking flour that we have is white. And there's a reason for that. The way wheat is made, it has three components. The outside is brown. We call it brown, B-R-O-A-N. Immediately inside is what we call germ. And then inside, which is the largest part of it, is called the endosperm. The endosperm is barren. There are no nutrients in them. But the vast majority of our wheat that we get from the stores is made from the endosperm. The bran, which has the fiber, has been removed. The germ, which has 90% of the vitamins and the nutrients, they've been removed. So what we have in all the bread, all the flours, all the cookies and the candies is just nutritionless food. And you say, why? The reason is, it was found out a long time ago that when you remove that bran and the germ, there's nothing for insects to eat. They are not attracted to that part of it. Therefore, they can stay longer on the shelf. The longer they stay in the shelf, the more profit the people will have. Therefore, when we buy bread, look for whole wheat bread, rye bread. because these have not been subjected to the same intense processing reactions that the white bread has got. More importantly, when you are looking for bread, look for the fiber content. Is it 1 gram? Is it 2 grams? Is it 5 grams? The higher the gram or the percentage of fibers, the better is the bread. White bread predominantly will cause you constipation, apart from the fact that it doesn't have any nutrients. They kill through the process, the heating. By heating the endosperm, by heating the germ, by heating the fibers, you have destroyed 90% of the nutrients. And what you have is completely bad. Unfortunately, we are attracted to white bread. It's more tasty, they say. What I have said about flour is the same thing with rice. Rice fresh from the farm is brown. Again, the bran is removed, the germ is removed, and you are left with the endosperm, and that is white. Not only that, they go on to bleach it, because an experiment was done in the Philippines early in the 1920s. The most prosperous people tended to like the white rice more. And so it became popular. Only the poor people ate the brown rice. And what did they find after the experiment? They found out that the people who were eating mostly the white food developed a disease we call beriberi, which is deficiency in vitamin B. So much so that the American soldiers that were stationed during the Civil War, during the World War in the Philippines, had to beg, please let us eat the brown rice. Because in the camp, a lot of them were suffering from beriberi. And only when they changed their diet, that condition improved. So white flour, white rice, bad for us. Brown rice will take you a little longer to cook than white rice. And yesterday I begged my wife again, please, can I just make sure we have white and brown? It takes no, I said, sweetheart, I know. For the most part, that's what she does. Brown rice in the house. Please, I'll be patient, don't worry. Milk. First, I want to say it's only human beings that cross-drink milk.
Yeah.
You don't see a goat going to drink the milk of a dog. Man was made for human milk. But we have come to believe that we need milk. And so, long after we stop feeding on our mother's milk, we go to the store and buy milk. Couple of things I want to say there. Most cows, they have to be grown so that they are constantly producing milk, which is not natural. And so it's antibiotics and growth hormones to put them in that state where they are out of, is always flowing with milk. So if you go to a farm and get fresh milk, you are getting it the way God made it. However, that's not how you get it. It has to get to the store, and they subject it to a process we call pasteurization, where you heat that milk, that fresh milk, to 39 degrees Fahrenheit. At that point, most of the enzymes, most of the proteins are denatured. So they have died. They have become useless, basically. And then they have to store them at deep temperature so that they can take and tolerate the long time it takes for it to be rebagged. And then they do what we call homogenization, meaning fortification, meaning they will not take what they think is missing and add it to it. So that's why you see vitamin D rich milk, evaporated milk, skim milk, 1% milk, 2% milk. Because the fat that was separated, now they then take it and mix it different portions so that they give you the different types of milk that we get in the market. No fat, 1%, 2%, skim milk. In reality, the milk that we drink is bad milk because it doesn't have the nutrients. If you must drink milk, then we are blessed in Rockland County. You drive around 5 north or around 17 north, 5 north or around 9 north, you will see some farms, especially spring, summer, and fall, where you have unprocessed milk. And you can still get good milk, although it's cow milk. Sugar. The same process that white flour is subjected to rice and milk, the same thing with white sugar. White sugar has been rid of its bran, of its germ, and you are left with the endosperm. And the only thing it does is insult our pancreas. That's why a lot of people suffer and go into diabetes. No wonder, with so much rice, flour, sugar in our diet, there's an epidemic of diabetes in America and most parts of the world. Briefly, let me talk about meat. The most popular meat today is poultry, chicken. And there are 2 types of chicken, whether it's Purdue or whether it's Tyson. Either a chicken is modified to give meat, they call it broiler, or modified to give eggs, and they call that foilers. Now, they call it layers. What is the problem with that? On the average, a hen or a cock should have a normal lifespan of about 14 years. During which time, in a lifespan, a hen may lay about 130 eggs. But the ones we are eating are modified genetically so that those that are designed for laying eggs lay about 320 eggs a year instead of the entire lifespan. And that's all they are designed for. And they do this within a span of 2 years. At the end of 2 years is when they go to the slaughterhouse. The ones that are made for food, for meat, for our table, however, live a miserable 6 weeks life. From the time it's hatched until the time it gets to our table, it's 45 days, 6 weeks period. How do you think they get there? Chemicals. I dare you, when you go back home, as I do when I go back home, have chicken and compare it with the chicken we eat here. The chicken that you and I eat when we go back home, they are strong, they are firm, and they have enjoyed freedom in the backyard, eating natural food. The ones that we eat here, if you ever go on the poultry farms, they are stressed, they are diseased. Because their growth is compressed and accelerated. Many of them suffer from heart disease, serious obesity, they can't even support their weight. They are stressed because they are in dark, unlit sheds with no room for themselves. Many of them, their beaks have been cut, they are dead. What happens when you are stressed? The body secretes catecholamines, epinephrine, adrenaline, all these things. Those are the type of chemicals that you and I secrete when we lion gets into this room and we have to run as fast as we can. It's supposed to be a state of stress, but it's supposed to be for a short time. But this is the life that this chicken live for the 6 weeks before they are fed and slaughtered. And those chemicals, where do they go to? Go to. That's why you can start eating chicken consistently. You never had high blood pressure before. Give yourself a few weeks on that diet, you develop high blood pressure because of those chemicals. Remove yourself from that diet, in a few weeks your blood pressure will come down because of those chemicals. It's also because antibiotics have to be pumped into this chicken to prevent diseases like Campylobacter and Salmonella. Guess what? It comes into our body. That's why today there's a lot of antibiotic resistant diseases. If I were to develop pneumonia today in Nigeria, they'll probably give me penicillin and give me tetracycline and I'll be cured. Most bacteria that cause pneumonia in America, those antibiotics don't work because of our exposure to all sorts of resistant organisms from our chicken and our beef. What I have said about chicken is the same thing with beef, is the same thing with pork. What is the message? Limit those things as much as possible. It is great damage. They will never tell you that these things are dangerous. Back in 1906, a Christian, Sir Weber, took FDA to court to report what he was seeing in the emerging industries. Too much chemicals, so much so that he was dismissed for crying out loud. It's been going on. There's so much power, so much money in the industries lobbying our lawmakers to protect their interests. Just like you have heard about the NRA. Just as you are hearing about smartphone, brain cancer. God has called us to be wise. Our people perish for lack of wisdom. I want to talk about the next most important thing, if not the most important thing, in our head. And that is our blood vessels. From my head to my toes, as well as each one of us, is 60,000 miles of blood, highways, the arteries, the veins, the venues, the arterioles, the capillaries. Highways that carry blood from one part of our body to every part of our body. 60,000 miles in this body, in your body. That is the same distance as if I travel to California, back, and I do it 10 times. Because that is, from New York to California is 3,000 miles. So I have to do that journey back and forth 10 times. That is how much time, that is how much distance it is for a molecule of oxygen through a beat of the heart, through my every battle. The earth, bless you, son. The earth is a sphere, meaning I can travel from California, Los Angeles, come to New York, London, Beijing, Alaska, and back. And that distance, that circumference, is 27,000 miles. That I will have to do 2.5 times. It will be equivalent to 60,000 miles of highway in my body. Now, for a highway to be effective, there must not be any obstruction. If there's any obstruction in any part of the highway, you cannot get to your destination. In the case of our body, if blood cannot get to my heart, heart attack. If blood cannot get to my brain, stroke. If blood cannot get to my kidney, kidney failure. Oh, no. Therefore, our mandate is to make sure that blood gets to every one of the 100 trillion cells that God constitutes our body with. 100 trillion cells. All of them, but each one by itself is a complex factory. Too much cholesterol in the body, bad cholesterol, clogs the highway. So blood can't go through. And the best way to get blood through this wonderful thing, oxygen. So God formed man from the dust. And dust is lifeless until God did something like this. Oxygen. And with that oxygen, what was lifeless took on the amazing life of God. Which is why exercise is the best formula for getting that blood into every cell. Exercise. You say you don't have gym money to go to the gym, you don't need that. You don't have money to buy a beautiful subscripted treadmill like my senior brother, Mr. Martin. You don't need that. When I travel, this goes with me. a pair of sneakers and that. Those are the first things I pack. John, you think you can put me a worship music? Something you can do, you know. If you stand with me, let me teach breathing exercise. If you don't do anything, you don't know me. It's a melody. You surround me with song. Take as deep breath as you can. From Miami and hold it. Till on my feet and let go. Let the word of God sink into your body. Rejuvenate and reinvigorate all those cells. Bring them to utter submission to the marvelous will of God. And with this band, every part of your body, you can do. This is your back, this is your triceps. You can make it as tight as you want. You never need to buy weights anymore. I can't sing like Vivian, but I know that I'm worshiping God. This is for your chest. babe. You're a child of God. I said, what should I do? I said, every morning just get up. Whether you have pain or not, just do that. She did it and she came back. Dr. Mama, the baby disappeared. I said, God, it's not a man. That is your life. Yes. Amen? Yes. Ask me any questions. Ask me any questions. God bless you. Oh yes. What is that? This one is medium. Medium, okay. Yeah, the green is hard one. Okay. That's the one I use. Okay. Yeah. And you know, even this one you can make it into a hard one. It just decreases the distance and it becomes hard. Wonderful. Yes.
In reference to milk, what do you think about almond milk? It was kind of non-cow milks.
It's the same thing. Soy milk, camel milk, they are less of a problem, but they still all go through pasteurization. The only one that is not pasteurized is the one you get straight from the farm. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about sleep?
Sleep.
I know as, you know, like my mother and my dad, as you get older, sometimes you suffer from insomnia. Can you talk a little bit about sleep and how to get a good night's sleep as you get older? I mean, it's true. It's a fact.
Very, very good question. I have come to give you peace, not as the world gave, but as I only can give. We worry about a lot of things. And when you worry about a lot of things, your body secretes chemicals that keep you alive, keep you awake. It decreases the amount of sleep causing or promoting hormones. We call them endorphins. So the more worries we have, the less of endorphins we have, and the more of the stress hormones we have. So it changes the balance. So what do? Many of my colleagues, they will put you on sleeping medicine, but it doesn't address the problem. The problem is finding that peace in the storm, and only Christ can do that. Do I get stressed sometimes? You bet I do. But how do I get my sleep? By recognizing that my worries, as much as I worry about them, I'm not going to move the dial. Only by resting in the ocean of love of God. And so in those moments, hymns, I begin to sing hymns in my raspy voice. I begin to read passages in the Bible. And before you know it, like a baby, I fall asleep. So, sleep is very important. But how much sleep depends on the individual. I can't sleep more than 4 hours a night, no matter how hard I try. So I don't even try. So I have gotten used to that. My wife must sleep 7 hours. And if she doesn't sleep 7 hours, everybody's going to be miserable in the house. Don't tell how I said that. Don't tell how I said that. But that's our constitution. And we have to find who we are in the way God made us. Did that answer the question?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
lately there have been like an epidemic of brain aneurysm.
Yes.
And I know one of my coworkers, he came to work, he was in the streets and he had a brain aneurysm and he died. He never
Yes.
came back. What is some suggestions that some warning signs and suggestions to try to avoid
Yeah.
those things?
It's a form of stroke. The only problem with that is a blood vessel ruptured. And some people can be born with it and we don't know, it doesn't give any sign. The time it gives signs is when it enlarges because the brain is a very incompressible space. It's so much that is crowded in there. So a little growth causes problems. So if you have a very severe sudden headache that you have not ever had, stop and think about it, because at that warning stage, something can be done about it. We can flip it. If we neglect it, the thing bursts. Many people don't make it to the hospital. If you do, there will be a lot of residual damage. So high blood pressure is one of the biggest predisposing factors for that. So make sure your blood pressure is where it should be. For everybody, most adults, our blood pressure should not be more than 120, 80, 85. If it's above that, for whatever reason, cut out salt, drink a lot of water, exercise, because once your blood vessels are relaxed, then it doesn't provide the stiffness and the resistance that causes high blood pressure. So there may not be any warning sign, but make sure that your cholesterol is low so that you don't clog up the highway. And number 2, exercise so that the blood vessels are very compliant. And number 3, blood pressure. Make sure it's as normal as possible.
You talked about milk. I happen to be one of those guys, one of those people who like milk.
Yeah.
But I've resorted to drinking organic milk, which, in my mind anyway, is pretty close to what I remember, from your country. Do you know anything about that process that leads to the organic milk that we get from the stores? Is that as
The organic milk that you get from the store.
Yeah. I'm saying how close to the how close to the natural is it?
I want to make sure we're on the same page. I thought you said the organic milk you get from down the road.
But I just want to know if I need to make an adjustment, or is that a good is that a fairly wholesome way to enjoy milk?
Yes, let me say yes, but let me say no. The reason is the organic industry is not regulated.
Yeah. Right.
So what you call organic is different from what she calls organic.
Yes.
So that is there's no standard in it. Having said that, if I tell you don't drink milk, I'll be deceiving myself. So what do I say? Drink it in moderation. I don't drink coffee, but on the job, you see everybody taking a sip of coffee, and sometimes I take a sip of coffee, but there won't be any milk on it. You understand? So you limit the amount of sugar you put in it, limit the amount of milk that you put in it. And moderation is everything. Yes.
Just to add to Ernst, there's ways to get farm fresh milk in this area, especially like Rockland and Bean Farm and Putnam. Like even in Chestnut Ridge, I forget the name of the market, there's a small organic market where they actually have the glass milk from the bottle from the local farm.
Yes.
So like an organic carton milk, it's hit or miss, you don't know, that there's the regulations and the guidelines aren't quite there. But if you were to go just local, you're probably better off than organic. Or almond milk. Years ago, Ramon told me, with Raquel and then Rio he started talking to me about stopping cow's milk. I grew up on cow's milk, but I have to have cereal. Like it's just like a slippery slope of bad habits. But Ramon actually got us off cow's milk, and now we only drink almond milk. And it's so good.
Yes.
Silk.
There's a place in Haverstraw. My wife talks about Trader Joe's all the time. Is it Trader Joe's? Yes. No, it's on Route 17. Hold on. And then there's this store by Barnes and Noble here in Nanuet. Right. So there's a place where you can get, something a little bit, because those people are devoted to ensuring that their food is as unprocessed as possible.
But that, as adults, do we need milk?
You don't need that
We
milk.
don't need.
The thing with organic,
Vivian doesn't agree.
the thing with organic is that it comes in percentages.
Yes.
So if some of the you can have non-organic components in it as long as you meet certain criteria. So if you have 70% of it is organic, then it can be certified organic. So you have to be careful with organic.
Yes, right.
Eating grains.
Yes.
I'm a big grain person. Quinoa, buckwheat, millet, all of those grains. And what do you think about the process of those grains? How do you process?
If they are not processed, like I said, the difference, like Shirley was saying, Betty was saying, organic is processed less than the non-organic, but they still are processed. The one that is really your best is a brown one, because they have not removed the brown, which is the fiber, the germ, which has all the nutrients, they have not removed them. But they are not as doughy as the one that has been removed and that is purely, endosperm only. They are not as doughy and they don't rise as much, which is another thing I forgot to tell you. In order for the bread, the flour to rise, so they can make profit, they have to add potassium bromide. And yeast. So the potassium bromide, actually, the assumption is at the end of the ride, it will live, but many times it's still left. And the more potassium iodide you have, it's labeled as a class 2B carcinogen. And bleaching, they use bromate or bromate. Those things have been banned in Australia and the UK, but not in America.
Could you
So
talk
you
about
want-
keyword?
Eh?
Could you talk about keyword?
Chemotherapy.
Keyword.
I'm not too familiar with that.
Yeah, bulgur wheat, quinoa, millets, all those are whole grains akin to brown rice. And as long as you're not buying it processed, now if you buy the quick and easy, you'll cook it in 5 minutes, then that's what's been stripped.
It's been
But if you
processed.
buy the ones that are whole and from good companies like Red Mills, those are good. And I bought quinoa today, so I just want to speak up for the quinoa. I bought organic, whole grain, whole quinoa.
Yes. Read the labels. Read the labels. Very important. Read the labels. Now you are instructed to put the labels. Read the labels. Yes.
What about fish?
Fish. Fish is good. The reason fish is good, depending, I'll come to that. Fish is good. The reason it's good is because there are 3 types of cholesterol. We have the bad cholesterol, we call that the LDL. That is the one that attaches to the walls of the highways and clogs it up with time. Then you have the HDL, which is a good cholesterol. And it tries to antagonize the bad cholesterol. And then you have the triglycerides, which you have in red meat. So the good cholesterol is very rich in fish. So the whiter the fish, the better.
The white.
Yes, because if you have things like tuna, halibut, salmon, these ones are very high in omega-3 fatty acids, which are powerful antioxidants, and they are very rich in HDL, which is a good cholesterol. So yes, fish is good, and it would be preferred to poultry and cow and beef for the most part. Again, Moderation is everything.
When the fish, I saw something that says the tilapia by farm.
Yes. Well, that is a good thing. That's a good point. Is it wide or is farmed? There's a big difference. The difference is in the degree of mercury.
Yeah, but most fishes today are being farmed. Even
Yes,
the snout,
yes.
salmon,
Yes.
everything is
Yes,
farmed.
that's correct. Wide is supposed to be better than farm. Farm, the basis is profit.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of mercury. The lesson is as little as possible. Yes, Pat. And Pat.
One good question. Since people are not really into turkey,
Yes.
turkey takes a long time. They allow them to grow. I mean, is it different from chicken? Because people don't really eat turkey.
Yeah.
Eh? You said what?
I ate turkey.
Yes.
Generally, it's chicken. Everybody loves chicken. Everybody eats chicken. So I'm wondering that if turkey, since they really try to approach it on people like only for Thanksgiving, is it that they don't process it the same way because it's not the most popular form of meat?
It's the same, less of the processing and less of the rearing in turkey as chicken. Make sure that the turkey is not smoked turkey. If it is smoked turkey, it's too much salt. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. John is yawning.
I want to share something about the fish, but I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
But with the fish, it really depends on the kind of fish and where it comes from. Like
Yes.
the problem with tilapia is that wild tilapia comes from Indonesian seas that is highly polluted.
Thank
So
you.
that's why it's recommended now not to do tilapia, to do farm tilapia. For
Farm.
farm fish, you gotta be careful because they're also putting antibiotics and in the farm fish. So for me personally, it's wild Alaskan, fresh water wild. But a question about the rice and the brown rice in particular, because I've heard some news and I've just ignored it about the arsenic that's being found in rice, particularly more in what they say now is that there's more arsenic in the brown rice because it's not as processed.
That's correct.
But so what's the deal with the arsenic? Because I've decided to ignore it because I love rice.
Don't.
But what's the deal with the arsenic?
Well, arsenic is a chemical very much like mercury, very much like sodium, potassium. The concern is the damage that it can do to your DNA. You know, so again, we are living in a time where many of these things we cannot avoid. So my gospel is limited.
Dr. Pastor, quick question for you. What can someone do to bring up their white blood cell if it's low?
Okay. Before I answer that, let me say what white blood cells are. There are three main cells in the body, in the blood. White cells, they are the soldiers, the fighter of infection. And then the red blood cells is the one that carries the oxygen. And then we have the platelets. The platelet is what causes us not to bleed. You know, my young man here just had the cut. And the reason he wasn't bleeding was because the platelets, as soon as they were cut, you know, they run in there and clog up the hole. How wonderful God is. So we don't bleed to death. Now, depending on the population, the white cell count can be anywhere from 4,000 to 11,000. Blacks tends to have lower. My white count, for instance, for the last many years is around 2, 3. And every time I go for my physical exam, they said, this is your white cell count. That's the way it has always been. So our count tends to be lower, you know, than the main part. So the most important thing is how it always is. So if you are running 4,000 below, that's you. So if I have an infection, God forbid, instead of my white count to be 20,000, my white count may be 8,000. So I've gone from 4,000. You understand? So it's just you. That's just the way it is. So there's nothing you can do to bring it up. If I run, immediately after I run, you take my white count, it's probably going to be high because all the cells, they have left the wall and they are in the middle where blood is being drawn. But normally they are quiet and they are away, so it will be 2. You know, when I do my physical, my white count is about 2.8 most of the time. Yeah? Okay.
But when in hospitals, and I don't remember, when you're sick and they tell you, oh, your white count, your white blood cell count is high.
Yes.
Is that being used as an indicator for infection, or what does that mean?
Well, there are 2 things. Number 1, it means there's an infection. And your body has responded adequately. Because if there's war in America right now, what do you see? Soldiers everywhere.
Okay.
When there's no war, the soldiers are in the barracks, right?
Yeah.
So when there's war, there's an infection. The white cells, they are out trying to fight the infection, so it will be high. What is bad is when there's an infection and your white cells are not high. It means that the infection has overwhelmed your system.
So not high is bad.
Not high is bad.
Because that's usually something that I've only heard of, like in relation to like cancer and cancer patients and treatment, but I don't know what it means.
Yes, that's what it
And
means.
so it means, so actually low white blood cell count is bad.
If there's an infection and your white cell count is low, it's bad because it means your body has not responded adequately, or the infection is so much it overwhelms your immune system. Yeah. Yes.
Just very quickly, just about women's health and how we should be eating, and specifically as it relates to fibroids. Is there a natural way to shrink, get rid of those?
Yes. And the question is about fibroids, women. We didn't talk specifically about men and women, but fibroid, we call that medicine the weeping baby of unused uterus.
Unused?
So people who have not had the privilege of carrying children in their womb tend to have more fibroids than not. Now, it's just accumulation of estrogens. The question that you're asking me, how do you limit it? If it is not big size, it has been found out that women who are mostly on vegetarian diet, they don't grow as much hormones as women who are on meat-based diet. I just told you about hormones in our beef and in our poultry. So that promotes the growth of fibroids. If it has reached a huge size and is causing problem, there probably is no other cure but to remove it. But if it's in the early form and you don't want it, changing your diet to be mostly vegan diet is a way to prevent it from going. The same thing with breast cancer, the same thing with uterine cancer, the same thing with prostate. The less animal red meat we eat, the less of breast cancer, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, prostate cancer.
You got a text message.
More to get that on his phone.
Pastor, thank you very much. Thank you, thank you.
Let's get back to Francis and Henry here. I mean, just to have someone like this, is such a blessing. And that's why I try to get as much information from them as possible. And it was great to have it the second time, just to get us to know. And, that's what my heart for each one that comes in here. I want us to be healthy. I just don't want to come and preach a message to you and then go home. I want to keep you healthy, all 3 bodies. thank you, Dr. Francis, and I hope you learned a lot today from the stuff. And I was watching you guys, and I see you guys were learning a lot. Okay, and Fred, I saw when Dr. Francis talked about sleeping, you turned away a little bit. You made sleep a lot. No, just listening. Well, thank you again. It's really bad that every time we have Dr. Francis to speak about certain things, we got food. I mean, it's funny. I mean,
Have fun.
But like he says, like he always says, we're just gonna have a little. Okay, I'm gonna not so guys, I mean, Dr. Francis loved doing this because he loves us that are here and he's trying to do this. And he sees my heart for each one of you. So please pay attention. The exercise he did, you may can't go to the gym in the morning, but what he did was awesome. And he went through the whole process. We could do something just to keep our body in good health. All right? Next week, we also now gonna finance is also as bad as health is for us in one sense. Our finance is just as bad. So next week we're gonna get that as well. How we can grow from there. My vision is that we'll be healthy physically and financially. Right? So God bless you. Thank you for being here this morning and enjoy your week.